Welcome to Schwetzingen Palace Gardens. I'm honoured to be here on Viking.TV. My name is Jan Enss. I studied history of art at the University of Heidelberg and I started giving tours here in the beautiful garden 4 years ago, and as of recently I also started working at the office where we organise tours such as this. Schwetzingen Palace Garden is one of the most amazing gardens of the Baroque era that still exists in Germany, and it's actually the only one where all of the decoration that was put here nearly 300 years ago still exists. It continued to survive and thrive throughout the ages, and it has come back to life at the end of the last century, but it was built mostly under the care of one ruler in particular. His name was Theodore, and he was the Prince Elector of the Palatinate of the House of Wittelsbach, and he had most of this garden built during his rule from the 1740s to the 1790s. He started off wanting a formal classical French Baroque garden where everything is symmetrical and you have broderies, and this is what he got, and it continued to grow for most of its existence. But towards the end of his life, fashion changed and the more modern style of garden became, the latest thing, and he wanted to go with the fashion, and so he had the backs of the garden turned into an English landscape style garden that comes from the idea of English landscape paintings. So some of the garden is actually not very symmetrical. It looks like this ideal landscape that has never been touched by humans, but of course it has. It was artificially designed, so artificial natural beauty, if you will. I'm taking you on a little round trip around our garden, and I'm showing you the sights, the most amazing sculptures, and I hope you will enjoy this trip. The sheer size of the garden dwarfs the palace that stands at the edge of it. You could argue that the more important monument in Schwetzingen is in fact the garden and not the palace, which is why I welcome you to take a walk with me and look at the different parts of the garden, discover their secrets with me together, and enjoy your time here. So, this is the garden. Well, not the actual garden, but of course a tiny little model. This is the Baroque Palace of Schwetzingen, the summer residence where the Prince Elector used to live, and these semicircular buildings were used to entertain his guests in the summer. The theatre, the indoor one, is over here. And this, here in the middle, is the formal French-style classical Baroque garden. And here on the outsides, this is the more recent addition. This is the English-style landscape garden. This is the parterre. It's the very heart of the gardens, and in the summer months this is where most of the court life would have been taken place. This here is the Fountain of Arion. Arion was a Greek poet and singer, and one day he was invited to take part in the musical contest on the island of Sicily. He won the contest and he got loads of gold for it, but on the return journey home, his crew, being jealous of his riches, decided to turn pirate and gave him the choice whether he wanted to commit suicide and be buried on land in Greece, or whether he wanted to jump off board and be swept away by the waves and perish from this world forever. He wanted one last wish, which he was granted, but this last wish was to sing a song, and so in his presumably last song he praised Apollo, the god of poets and singers, and Apollo sent some dolphins to save him. The dolphins brought him to Greece, and in Greece he awaited the pirates together with the city's officials, which apprehended the pirates, and then they were crucified, and Arion got his money back. The Prince Electors liked to hunt, and as it was one of their favorite hobbies, they also had parts of the garden dedicated to this hobby. In the early days, there was a hunting ground behind us here. In later days, it wasn't used anymore, and there was a mosque built, a fake mosque. But to commemorate their hunting pastime, they had sculptures put here of a stag being hunted down by hounds. And this isn't only a symbol of their hobby, but also a story from ancient Greece or ancient Rome. The goddess Diana was having a bath with her nymphs when the hunter Actaeon came upon her and saw her naked body. Being angry at Actaeon for seeing her naked, Diana turned him into a stag, and his own hounds hunted him down and killed him eventually. So that is what you get when you watch a goddess take a bath. Welcome to the Apollo. Not the theatre in London, but a theatre nonetheless. This is the outdoor theatre at Schwetzingen Palace Gardens. This is the man himself, Apollo, the god of creativity and also, of course, in a way, of culture and theatre. And the Prince Elector, Karl Theodore, he was very interested in music and theatre, and so he wanted to have not only an indoor theatre, but also, for the summer days, an outdoor theatre. There are exits and entrances here on the side, and down this way there's the auditorium, there's some space for the orchestra and of course the audience to sit. This is one of the only fountains where the function was more important than its form, because it was built to keep drinks cold. This is the bathhouse, but it's not primarily for taking a bath as the name might suggest. Well, it's more of a private, tiny palace within the gardens. This is where the Prince Elector Karl Theodore could be on his own and do whatever he pleased. This is where he would invite private guests to come and have long discussions with him, including the French poet and philosopher Voltaire. The bathhouse is in fact a full functioning small palace. It has a kitchen, it has a bedroom, it does have a bathtub, but it also has, and this is what was mainly used, I would suggest, it has a writing cabinet. So on long hot summer days where Karl Theodore wanted to be on his own, he would come here and have some peace and quiet. So here we are, inside the sanctuary, the most private, most hidden part of the palace gardens. This is the bathhouse, and this is where only a select few of guests would have been invited to come to. Let me show you around. There's only 5 rooms. This here is the auditorium. This is where most of the entertaining would have taken place. And then here we have the dining room. And then over on the other side we have the writing cabinet. And here on the other side is the bedroom. And the room that gave this tiny little palace its name. This is the bathroom. The water in the bathtub could be heated in a small kitchen next door. It had a copper kettle, quite a large one, and a fireplace, and there you could heat up the bath water. The bathtub has enough space for 2 people that can sit on benches, on stone benches. And if you were to take a bath in the 18th century, you would most likely wear a bathrobe. And you wouldn't wear it after your bath, you would wear it inside the bath to keep the water and potential diseases away from your skin. This is the end of the world, or at least that's what local people call it. The end of the world is a painting there in the very back, and it's painted on a slightly round wall. That has the effect that light that comes in from the top is reflected back and forth and basically amplifies itself, making it look like there's a light on. As with many noble families of the time, the lion is on the coat of arms of the Wittelsbach family. This is the Orangery. In the 18th century, it was quite common for powerful rulers to have greenhouses like this one so that they could grow exotic fruit, which was otherwise impossible to get, including lemons, oranges, limes and pineapple. You could heat the indoors with fireplaces, chemical reactions and, of course, the sunlight. The garden was always open to the public. Unlike many other Baroque German gardens, Karl Theodore had decided that the public should be able to enjoy his garden as well. There was only one rule, and that was that you are supposed to dress appropriately, which not everybody always did. There was also a little bit of a problem, because if anyone can come to the garden, sometimes you end up having people that are, let's say, less than desirable, including thieves. So one day, Karl Theodore was walking the garden alone, as he usually did, and he was ambushed by a gang of thieves, and they stole everything he had on him, apart from his underwear. This is the sculpture of Pan sitting on rocks next to the riverside, and according to the poet Ovid in his Metamorphoses, Pan was chasing a wood nymph called Syrinx when she ran away from him to protect herself and came to a stream where she asked her cousins, the river nymphs, for protection, and they helped to turn her into long river grass. When Pan got to the river, he couldn't find her anymore and he was furious, and so he cut all of the river grass he could find into pieces, including his love interest Syrinx, and then he decided, realizing his mistake, that he would turn her into an instrument that he could play and that would be hauntingly beautiful, giving the sad song of Syrinx for eternity. And that instrument to this day, of course, is known as the pan flute. This is the English landscape part of the garden, complete with little follies, artificial waterways and aqueducts, all man-made in the 18th century. This is where our time together comes to an end, and if you want to discover more of the beautiful gardens at Schwetzingen, I recommend you come here.